Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about something that's been taking up a lot of my mental energy, and that's figuring out how to read these calls for paintings or CFPs or calls for entry, calls for art, however you want to say it. This is an audio podcast. What that basically means is grab a cup of coffee, get a cup of tea, sit down. You can listen while you do something else. Getting back to these CFPs. Honestly, I'm still learning, so don't take my word for it, but this is my experience thus far. As I'm still learning and don't entirely have this figured out, I'm starting to see some patterns in how I approach them and thought it might be helpful to share that process with you in the trial and error of it all. So, Here's what happens. I'll be scrolling through my emails or checking one of these art opportunity websites and I'll see a call. And my first reaction is usually excitement, right? Like, oh, this sounds really cool, I should apply. But then I've learned sometimes the hard way that I actually need to slow down and read what they're asking for. The thing is, a lot of these calls are written in this kind of art speak, and I'm still learning what that language is. So I've started asking myself a few questions when I come across one. So, kind of like the first thing I want to know and try to figure out is, do I actually understand what they're looking for? It sounds really basic, but that's really important because sometimes I'll read a theme and it's like quote unquote liminal spaces or the intersection of memory and place, and I'll think, yeah, I get that. But do I get it? And also, I may get it in an academic sense, pertaining to something else, and I may not get it in an art sense. So, if time allows, I'll sit with it for a day or so, and then I realize, I think I get this, or am I projecting what I want it to mean? Anyway, I've started rereading things several times. If I'm still unclear, I'll read it a few more times. I'll also look up past exhibitions in the space and see what's been done in the past and what work did they actually select, and hopefully that may give me a clearer picture. So, the next thing I ask myself, would I want to see this exhibition if I were not trying to be in it? This one has been really helpful for me because if I'm being honest, there are some calls where the themes sound really impressive, but I wouldn't want to go to that show. And if I wouldn't want to go, why am I trying to be in it? So, that's something that's a temperature check for me. If it doesn't feel right to me, then it's not something for me. But if I read it and I think, oh, I actually drive 30 minutes to go to this, that's when I start to perk up and pay a little bit more attention because it feels like it might genuinely be a match for me and my work and not a fit because I'm forcing this to happen. The other thing I think about is, do I have work that actually responds to this, or am I trying to make something fit that doesn't quite belong? Now, this is a hard one because you got to be really honest with yourself, as I am learning to be. And by the way, the one I'm painting here is one that is in the exhibition I'm a part of now. But anyway, before I get distracted, which happens all the time, I think I mess up a lot. I think I'll have a painting that I love and try to write it into the theme, or, even sometimes it may be a stretch. And I'm learning that curators and jurors can usually tell when you're doing that, kind of like recycling something or like reheating nachos, right? Anyway, isn't that something that the young people say? I don't know. There's a difference between work that's in conversation with a theme and work that I think it's just trying to convince people that it's related. So I'm trying to be more honest with myself and not have to do all of these gymnastics mentally to explain how my piece fits into a call. And if it doesn't, that's okay. Not every opportunity is for me. So there's also the practical stuff. What are the fees? What are the deadlines? What are the requirements? And I will be real with you. I have applied to things where I didn't fully read the requirements and then scrambled at the last minute because I didn't have the right file format or the right file images. So now I keep a little checklist like, what is the fee? What's the deadline? Do I actually have time to prepare something meaningful and thoughtful that would represent myself well? What are they asking for in terms of materials and all of these other questions? And the last one's kind of tricky because I don't want to talk myself out of opportunities, but I don't want to spend money and energy on things that feel like long shots all the way when there are other calls that may be more aligned in the future. Anyway, I guess what I'm sharing and realizing is that this whole process is about learning to read between the lines. And for me, it's about getting better at understanding not just what a call says, but what it's really asking for. And sometimes I get it right, and sometimes I miss completely. So there are calls I've passed on that I later saw the exhibition and thought, oh, I totally should have applied to that. And I'll bookmark it for later and thinking that it's something I may want to apply to in the future. And then there are other calls I've applied to where I saw the final show and I thought, yeah, my work doesn't belong there. But that's the part of learning, right? It's all going to come together with time. I would say every time I submit something, every time I decide to pass, I'm getting a little better understanding where my work fits in the larger art world, or where I want it to fit at least. So, and here's the thing that I'm holding on to. Even if I don't get in, even if I misread something, I am learning something, and that's really important to me right now. And I hope it continues to be important to me. I'm learning how to talk about my work. I'm learning about how to recognize opportunities that actually excite me and that are appropriate for this stage for me right now as an emerging artist. And, versus something that feels like I quote unquote should apply. I'm learning that it's okay to be selective, that I don't have to apply to everything, and that sometimes saying no to some opportunities mean that I have more time and energy for the ones that actually feel like a match and feel right. So, if you're trying to navigate this also, here is what I would say. Read the calls slowly and read them intentionally. Trust your gut about what excites you, and don't be afraid to let things pass by if they don't feel right. And you know that sometimes you're going to make mistakes, and it's actually how you learn. That's what I'm learning. I'm figuring this out as I go along, which is totally okay. Anywho, speaking of figuring things out, I wanted to remind you all that I currently have work in the Fishers Arts Council, and it's really exciting and it's running through the rest of February 2026. And this is one of those calls where I had to read it a few times, and I thought, yeah, I definitely would love to see this. And then I thought, well, maybe I should actually apply and submit and be in it. And so I took a chance and I submitted, and I was blown away and surprised, and I got in, and I was really happy with that. I also want to be really clear. This does not mean that I'm going to get into everything I apply for now. That's not how this works, I imagine. And I know something about applying for things and not getting into things based on my day job. But, that's part of the game, right? But what it does tell me is that when I take the time to really understand what a call is actually looking for, when I submit work that genuinely responds to their vision, sometimes it will work out. Sometimes you take the risk and it pays off. So, look, if you're in the area, I'd love for you to come see it. If you're in the Midwest, if you're in Indiana, it's going to be amazing. It's in Fishers, Indiana. And if you're not, I'll be sharing more about my work on the page in the future. Anyway, thanks for being here and following along on this journey with me. It means so much to me. And take care, you guys.